Okay, so this is a bonus session on the Top Gun. This is what I had in my sleep last night. Um, and so, how do you help people realize the significance of things? How damaged their hearts truly are. This connects back into, the PB church where, heart is deceitful and desperately wicked. Who can know it? People are self-righteous. We think we're better than other people. I mean, I could go into stories there that would just be like, do people not have these experiences? Or do you just have to have teenage children or adult children to have these experiences? I don't know. How selfish they are, how they lie to themselves and others, and how they use other people for their own benefit while believing the opposite is true. It's crazy. It's not about twisting what they are saying or doing. It's about how twisted their thinking is. Like that's really come up in the last year a lot, where people are like, you're twisting. Well, a couple years actually. My brother said that. My youngest brother said that. You're twisting. Am I? Am I? Like it's so funny. It's so hilarious. It's like that's not what I said. Well, actually, that's on a recording. So you did say. Well, if I did say it, I didn't mean it that way. So what you're telling me is you say things that you don't mean. So people's words actually reveal far, far more about their hearts and what they realize. But because everybody's twisted and nobody wants to see the truth, nobody sees it. It's fascinating. I sit back and said, did you guys all hear what I just heard? But they don't think about it. They don't think that is really twisted. Number two, so there's seven of these. When do you realize that the person simply doesn't have the capacity to carry the weight of the vision? So when I was 15 years old, I realized I was a pathological liar. I just lied about everything. It was insane. So I was in a private school, and there was a teacher that was ticking me off, and so I threw Smarties at the teacher from the back of the room.
Bruh.
And so he turned around and he's like, "Who did that?" And blah blah. And nobody, there were other kids that saw it, and there was this girl, and she went ahead and like I got called to the principal's office, big guy, like the monster guy. And again, private school. He calls me in the office. He says, Mark, so I'm 15 years old. He's like, Mark, um, you went ahead and threw the Smarties at the teacher. I said, no, actually I didn't. And he's like, well, actually, we know you did. I'm saying, well, I don't know how you'd know that. I mean, you weren't there. And he said, we actually have a witness. I said, really? He's like, yep, her. I'm like, okay. He says, do you want me to bring her in? I'm like, yeah, no, absolutely bring her in. So there's this one of my classmates. She comes in, sits down, and tell Mark, yeah, I saw you throwing the Smarties. What was my response?
I don't know. What was your response?
Oh, I'm messed up. I was messed up. Probably more messed up now than I was then, but man, was I messed up. I'm like, and her name was Regina. And no, it was Regina's sister, actually. Sorry, I forget her sister's name, but she goes ahead. She said, Mark, I saw you. I'm like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, I'm sure. I'm like, she said, I saw your hand. I said, how do you know I wasn't like stretching? Like, how do you know that? I mean, it was just messed up. And, and the principal, after she left, he didn't discipline me. He said, Mark, the Bible says that you need two witnesses. So I'm only going to, I'm not going to discipline you. Be fascinating. Anybody who watches this podcast, if I go ahead and bring something up and like, do you have two witnesses? And I'll know. Yeah, the person's guilty. They're messed up. They're just messed up trying to use stuff that I learned at 15 and they haven't learned it yet. Okay. And So it was soon after that, I was at Faith Baptist Bible College with my parents. Um, with my parents for, so they were missionaries. And so I was there. And, I just was lying. I mean, I was just lying about everything. It was insane. It became like like a addict for, like if you bet on things, don't bet on things. Don't gamble. Just don't. Gambling addicts literally they'll bet on like when you have on a car, you have rain comes down and then it goes ahead and the drops go down and they'll bet on which drop is going to go ahead. And it's addictive. So people, that's another whole story, when I realized at that same age how addictive of a personality that I have. And so it's not just, you just got to stay away from addictive things. Anyways, so so I was going to the gym and my dad said, "Hey Mark, do you have your gym shoes on?" Because you had to, couldn't wear your street shoes because it scuffed up, damaged the gym. I didn't care about it. I said, "No, Dad, I don't have them here, but they're in the car." He says, "Are you sure?" I said, "Oh, absolutely. No, I know they are." He's like, "Are you positive?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." And he just looked at me and then I don't know, a sad face, and he just pointed in the corner and my gym shoes were, I had no intention. And I realized at that point, like he didn't discipline me either. He was just disappointed in me. And and I realized my whole life vision is at risk. Like my entire life vision that I was given, 7 years before when I was 8. I'm like, Mark, you're gonna just you're just a liar. And so everything changed that day. So a pathological liar's ability to twist things that cause doubt. That's what I did with the girl and the principal. So um, there was a young man in oh, this is maybe there's 8. There's a young man I mentored and was friends with in Roomspringer who got used to get drunk to gain attention. Then he learned the power of personalities and asking questions, and he could be the center of attention without getting drunk, which I thought was a really cool thing. So the power that God's entrusted. If you guys haven't watched Lord of the Rings, it's a whole series. And there's this ring that has this supernatural power, and everybody wants the ring except the person who was called to have the ring. He was supposed to have the ring, but he didn't want the ring because he understood the power. And and so there was a guy that I did a 30-minute strategy session on, and we were talking. I did the personality assessment on him, and we were talking, and he said, "Mark, I want to be coached, and I want to be coached by you personally." I'm like, "Okay, well, we'll see, maybe." And he said, "Mark, do you realize how powerful what you have is?" I said, "I do, I think." And he said, "Do you realize if you could teach me that, what I could get from women when I go into bars?" I said, "I do." And not only did I not coach him, we didn't. So he was going to use the power that I had acquired and he was going to use it improperly. So, how do you know what to release to people? Like in Lord of the Rings and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's fascinating to me. Like that was one of the onboarding things that we used to do. I don't know, probably still should do it. Like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And when you watch that movie, what do you see? Almost nobody sees what it's just so clear to me, but nobody gets it. They just don't. There's so much in that. It's unbelievable. It's interesting, the space shuttle O-ring principle. So I was in college, so I would have been, it was after I was married. So I was probably 21 years old, I'm guessing. And I was in college in a classroom and word came out that the space shuttle blew up and Christy McClave, I think. She was a teacher, first civilian that went into space, and and the space shuttle blew up, and she died, and I don't know, 7 other astronauts died. And I remember thinking at the time, I bet you there was an analytic that knew that was going to happen, and they didn't listen to the analytic. And it wasn't until decades later that there was an article in the paper about a guy who worked for NASA, and he went ahead and predicted, he told them, he told them. But actually, now that I think about it, it probably wasn't an analytic. It was probably an analytic driver. That's my guess. Anyways, so the story was he had just died and he was there, and his daughter worked for NASA too. And he had warned the leaders that, yeah, you shouldn't go specifically. We shouldn't take off because this O-ring, it was too cold last night. There's millions of parts on a space shuttle, and the thing blew up because of an O-ring. And, and the daughter, obviously, because daughters, people don't listen to men. Okay. So so it blasts off, and the daughter's over the shoulder of the dad and says, "See, Dad, you're wrong. It didn't blow up." And the dad just said, "Just wait." And like 3 seconds later, the whole thing blew up. Women are fascinating. The God complex that they get, it's insane. So the smallest detail, like, I got this covered. Do you, sweetheart? Do you really? Are you sure? I don't know. Like, I've got a friend of mine who, when he was 15, he made a covenant with himself never to lie to himself. It's fascinating to me on how people lie to themselves. They do research in, Harvard and Stanford, the big colleges, the Ivy League colleges, and they research the brain. And somehow they put it out. And when the brain lies, the synapses in the brain fire, but every time you lie, they're less firing. So eventually you become a pathological liar. And you're often surrounded by other pathological liars. It's just crazy to see. It's like, jeepers. How does somebody do that? There was something in my sleep last night, and I haven't thought about this for years. There's a saying, something about if you hang out with dogs that have fleas, you're going to have fleas. You just are. And it's like, you know, yeah. Number 3, when one of my children was very sneaky at a young age, so she was probably, I don't know, 12 years old. She was probably 12 years old, and Kelly Wood came up to me and said, so my kids, so 3 of my kids at the time were cleaning the office. So she said, "Hey, I don't want to get any of your kids in trouble. I don't want to get any of your kids in trouble, but I have a Snickers bar that's missing." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I'll check into it." So I asked the 3 kids, and the other kids, the younger ones. So there might have been 3 or 4, maybe 4 or 5 potential culprits, but the 3 main ones that were cleaning. So I asked them, and I said, "Did any of you, take this?" And they all said no. Like, did any of you take the Snickers bar off? That was the question. Did any of you take the Snickers bar off the, off Kelly's desk? And no, we did not. I mean, I pressed them. Oh, when I was 15, back, another story of lying, pathological. It's just crazy. Like, it's, I'm ashamed. Like, it's just like, really, Mark. So my parents would let my brother and I stay home. And so he was 17, I was 15. He had his driver's license. I did not. And my dad said, "Hey, you can take the car to work, but you can't drive it anywhere else." Well, my brother and I decided to go down to Romeoville where we went to school and visit some friends and stuff. And we're driving down the second or third time when we're on vacation, when my parents are on vacation. And, and man, was I messed up. Cheapers. And and I don't know, second or third time we sent my older brother Vern. It's like, Vern, you don't think dad tracked the odometer, do you? Because it was like a 30-mile drive. So it's definitely not to work. And we're like, no, dad wouldn't do that. He's not that smart. Well, comes home from vacation. And so what he does is, he goes ahead and says, "Hey, boys, did you guys drive the car anywhere other than to work and back?" And it's like, "No, dad, didn't do it." He's like, "Actually, I know you did because I checked the odometer." Then he split us both apart to try to break us, and he couldn't break us. Like we both stuck to the story. Messed up. Holy cow, messed up. Um, and then, Mark the deceiver, he's like, "So dad, did you write it down? Maybe you mistook the numbers." We didn't get in trouble for that. So a thief, you often catch a thief in a little lie or in a little, not the big ones. The big ones, they go ahead and cover up really good. The little ones, yeah, they slip. You're going to catch them on the little ones. So anyways, I don't know, a few days later, I pushed really hard and I couldn't get to the bottom. A few days later, I go into my desk, in my office, and there, the Snickers bar is there. I'm like, what? Like, what? So then I kind of pieced it together and I had an idea of which child it might have been. And so I approached her and I said, "Hey," and she said, "Well, Dad, I didn't technically lie because I didn't take it off of Kelly's desk." I'm like, "Okay, what did you do?" So what she did is she knocked it off of Kelly's desk onto the floor. So she technically took it off the floor. This is like, I don't know, 12, 13 years old. Um, and um, and then I'm like, "Okay, and then what did you do?" And she said, "Well, I put it in your desk." Like, what? I said, "Why'd you do that?" She says, "Well, to see if anybody noticed it was gone, and then I'd eat it later." I'm like, "You got to be kidding." Sheepers, man. And it's interesting because people say, "Where did your children get that?" And most people will say Mark, but yeah, maybe not. I mean, definitely I have the capability, but that goes another whole level. And that same child worked for the church. And I told my brother, who's the pastor at the church, I told him, um, I said, "Hey, Ken, we've had an issue with this child lying. And so, we want to make sure she doesn't." Anyways, she went ahead and she had another teenage girl that was older than her. And she was calling and talking to her boyfriend was calling her at the church. And our daughter lied about it. And I told my brother, I want my daughter fired. And he did. He thought I was too hard. Everybody thought I was too hard on her. I don't know if that broke her from the habit. Number four is in my sleep last night. How you have to have a far higher dimension to operate in. The stricter the rules you must follow, the larger your vision. So if you're going into outer space, there's different laws out there. Um, and so people, like the things that I can teach people in a very short period of time, to move people. It's frightening to me. It is absolutely terrifying to me how much I know and how much you can move people. I mean, it's terrifying to me. So, how do you help people to realize that? Like you can't have the same standard. How do you help an analytic not niggle? Niggle is when, if you have a husband who's an analytic and a wife says, he says, you know, um, how much did you pay for that? And she says $5. And he says it actually wasn't five. It was $4.97. So an analytic niggles. It's just weird. It's just so what they do is, and I've seen this, and I can't even tell you how many times this happens, is where I mean they are so off base, it's insane. But what they do is they look for little tiny itty bitty things and they lock onto that little thing and they say, see, that's not true. Like that's not true. And it's like, really? And they're right, that's not true. But what they try to do is they're trying to distract from the fact of their own stupidity. They find the smallest details to squirm out of the big picture and how messed up, and it reveals how messed up their heart is. Character, friendship, loyalty. Like Dan Graham, so brought him in. Then he started his own company. He was a client, a friend, and there was a competitor of his, and so we were coaching him, and his team and stuff. And there's a big competitor of his, bigger than he was. And I don't know, I mentioned something about this guy calling me, and he said, I'd prefer that you not work with him because he didn't want us giving his competitor the same thing we were giving Dan. And we needed the business, we needed sales, 7 kids, like it was pretty important. I honored that because of the relationship. The teenage principal, one of our daughters was 15 years old and she was just learning to drive. And she was backing out of the driveway the first time. She was scared to death, terrified. I mean, terrified. I was in the passenger seat, she was in the driver's seat. And then I said, hey, honey, just to let you know, you're probably the safest driver that you'll ever be. And she's like, why do you say that, Dad? I don't know how to drive. I'm so scared I'm going to get in an accident. I said, because you are a terrible driver now, honey. And you're terrible. This is not where you're dangerous. Where you're dangerous, sweetheart, is when you think you're a good driver. You think you got it covered. It's like, okay, thanks, I guess, Dad. I don't know, 3, 4 months later, backing out of the same driveway, daughter driving, same driveway. I'd just come back from a business trip. Her friend was in the back seat, and we're backing out. And her friend says, hey, did you go ahead and tell your dad that you almost hit the big oak tree when he was gone? And my daughter looked at her, looked at me, and said, no, thanks. I didn't tell him that yet. And I said, honey, do you know why you almost hit the oak tree? She's like, no. I said, because you didn't listen to me, sweetheart. You didn't listen to Dad. I told you at the first time that, the first time you backed out, you didn't almost hit the oak tree. It's because you became confident. You became confident, overconfident. So the teenage principle is teenagers think they can do things they can't do. They don't think they can do things they can do. It's hard as a parent. Holy cow. Like your child's like, I can't do that. And you're like, well, I'm pretty sure you can. Or they say, oh, I can do that. I got that. Are you sure? Okay. But now I've just learned, if they're adults, it's fine. Well, what if they hurt themselves and a whole bunch of people? No, it's fine. It's just fine. Just let them be. It's fine. You can always tell when you got somebody in a situation where they're in trouble and they know they're in trouble, but they don't know it, but they are because they go to the extremes. They take things to the extremes. As soon as somebody takes something to the extreme, they're in trouble. They don't know it, but subconsciously they do. So they want to do something. Their heart wants to do something for who knows what reason. They probably don't even know themselves because they're not self aware. They're just not. So they want to do something. So they go to wild extremes. Well, I'm never going to do this. Or what do you want this? And it's like when somebody takes something to the extreme, it's like, okay. Number 5 is when people get locked and they don't even know it. They seek to bend and will outright lie. And they'll actually believe their lies. And then the 9 Ds kick in. When you call it, they're like, well, I didn't say that. It's like, are you sure? Well, I didn't mean what I said. Does that happen quite a bit frequently? I mean, it's mind boggling. And it's like when you see the O-rings, you see the vulnerabilities. And so do you continue to go ahead and train and develop the person? Because the mistake's going to they're going to hurt a lot more people. A lot more people. Number 6, in life, do we reach a point where when we make one decision, which seems small on the surface, but is an iceberg beneath the waterline and mess it up, never knowing what a single decision can cost us? So in hiring, Ross Perot would go ahead and billionaire when he hired people, he would go ahead and if they put salt on their food before they tasted it, he wouldn't hire them. Fascinating, right? For me, if I take somebody out to eat and they don't finish their food, um, that's a Baptist thing, a Boersma thing. It's like you got to always finish your food because if you don't, kids in Africa are starving. So is it a sign of wastefulness? I don't know. But maybe you shouldn't eat it because then you're fat. I don't know. It's like I don't like it's but there's little things that reveal big things in the future, and often people, well, that's just something small. And it's like it's an O-ring. And the driver personality has the ability, since they have the ability to see, but people don't listen, which is fine, especially if they're adults. So it's like, how many opportunities do we miss in life because we're not paying attention? Number 7. So again, all this happened in my sleep last night. It's like, dang, there's a lot going on in your sleep, right? I'm like, yeah. I went to bed just mind blank, like whatever. And it's just wake up this morning. And I'm like, I'm going to forget all this. So I just rather than checking all my emails, I just like, I got to write all this stuff down. Number 7 was, how do you get people to internalize things before they leverage anything? Like the whole purpose of the course of leverage, which isn't clear in the course, it just came to me the other day, is learn to leverage yourself before you leverage other people. So that's what happened in my sleep last night. Any questions or thoughts from anybody? All right. Oh, yeah, good stuff. A lot of stuff, right? What do you do with it? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I mean, it came off of the Top Gun, the bonus session, and so pretty interesting stuff for sure. You have any questions on this? Connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300 outside the US 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye bye.